and unpack a little bit. So do you have yourself any kind of key, maybe productivity tips, things that help you on the more day-to-day micro side of things that are top of mind that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think this has been something that I've done in the last couple of weeks to a month. Is something that I've almost rediscovered, and it's this guy. His name's Nir Eyal. I think that's how he says his name, and he wrote this book called
Yeah.
Indistractable. And I was listening to
Oh, yeah.
him on a podcast actually, and he was talking about I don't know why for some reason when I listened to this particular time because I've read his book in the past, but anyway, this particular podcast for some reason it just clicked with me a lot more, and his kind of whole idea of productivity is to really calendarize a lot of your life. So he does it to quite an extreme length where he calendarizes literally everything. So where like every single minute of his day is in the calendar. He'll have time to like it's like an hour to like be with the kids, like an hour to do this or whatever. And I think that is quite rigid. So I don't do it to that degree. But I think that whole idea of not having a to-do list and not just working through things ad hoc. It's more like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour on this and however much I get done, that's what it's going to be. And I think that idea of time blocking is something that also Cal Newport talks about. And I was actually researching this a few weeks ago. He has it's like this notebook thing. It's like a day planning journal type thing where you can do this time blocking in like a hard copy. And because he talks about this exact thing as well, where instead of having a to-do list, or maybe you start with the to-do list, but then your actual implementation of the to-do list is in your time. So let's say you might spend 25 minutes doing this, 25 minutes doing that, whatever. And I found that recently it's been something that has enabled me to get more done. Because oftentimes when you have that to-do list, you're kind of like, well, yeah, like I'll do this one. Usually by the end of the day, like maybe half or like there's always stuff left. Like you never finish the to-do list. At least it's been my experience. So
No.
whereas whereas like you always go through the time.
Guilty.
Yeah. So like having that, time and even saying, okay, this is like 50-minute block. I'm going to do this thing, and really consciously deciding that you're going to do that. I think has been, and then by deciding that it's also I'm not going to do this other stuff. So at
Mm.
work, even I'll say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour doing this. But that means during that hour, I'm also not checking my emails on my phone, that kind of stuff. So that gets like closed, phone goes away because I'm not doing that stuff because I've decided to focus on this one particular thing. And I think that process of even just like planning my day, deciding what to work on, bringing a lot more clarity to what I'm supposed to be doing at certain times, I think that's allowed me to get more done. And even at work, it's allowed me to participate in a lot more things because I can do certain work faster, which means I've got more time to do other extra things. So that for me has been a bit of a game changer, I think, in the last month. And for anyone listening, I'd recommend looking into that kind of stuff because I think it's very beneficial.
Yeah, I've similarly started adopting a bit an approach that befits that sort of style myself. I think there's something to do with the lack of control we have is hard to overcome with planning. That's why I think that the time blocking approach, you're allocating certain time to things which you can control. You can control how much time you spend on things, but you can't control how long they take to get done because that's fluctuating and dynamic. I don't know, the whole concept of, as you were talking, and all great points, the whole concept of productivity almost just makes me think that we have to acknowledge that there's just like some toddler part of us that it's so hard to actually get it to do what we want it
Mm,
to do. And we have to really get
mm,
creative and be very intentional and structured about how we get our inner toddler to basically like just do its work and
mm,
whatever. It's a very, and also like a lot of your takeaways from Lydia's episode number 7, I believe, about like how we're the athlete metaphor
mm.
too, or the athlete comparison. I think that's really good addition to that advice because you got to put in the time for rest, recovery, recuperation. We don't really have that in the business or corporate world, I think,
Mm.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
think just to
yeah,
add to
so,
that as well is
yep.
like even coming back to that stuff we talked about with Darren and like the spirituality stuff. You almost wanted to get it to where you don't really need these techniques where it's just work becomes something you actually want to do rather than like you're trying to set yourself time because like that's the only way you're going to be able to do it to where you actually find it
Mm,
fun to do the things.
mm.
And I think that's a game changer as well. is how can you make what you're doing interesting and fun so that you don't actually need to allocate 2 hours a week on the thing that you don't want to do because like those don't exist. It's just, I mean, maybe they always will, but I think having it more of that rather than less and actually enjoying things you're doing is also important in just being productive as a natural state rather than being it's something that you're trying to force yourself into.
Pretty appealing if it makes it enjoyable now. I think that's pretty low risk for people. So definitely a mindset worth embracing. I know I certainly try my best. Okay, so then Indistractable sounds like a good book and I might have to check it out.